The storm arrived like it was angry at the world. Freezing wind screamed across the empty land, carrying sharp needles of ice that slammed into the ground without mercy. Snow whipped sideways, erasing the road, swallowing everything in white silence. Even the trees seemed to bow under its force. And in the middle of it all, completely still, sat a German shepherd. He didn't run. He didn't bark. He didn't cry for help. Snow piled slowly on his back, sticking to his thick fur. Ice formed around his paws, locking him to the frozen earth. A heavy metal chain stretched from his neck to a steel post, each violent gust pulling it tighter, digging deeper into skin already raw and bleeding. His body trembled, but not from fear, from exhaustion, from pain, from something much worse. His eyes stared into the storm, dull and empty, as if he had already accepted what the night had planned for him. This wasn't a stray dog. This wasn't an animal that had never known love. This German shepherd had once worn AK-9 vest. He had once ridden in the front seat of a police cruiser. He had once chased danger while humans hid behind him. He had trusted people with his life. Now, abandoned in a place where no one would hear him if he collapsed, he sat quietly, his breathing growing slower with every passing minute. Cars passed miles away. Lights flashed briefly through the snow, but no one stopped. The cold crept deeper into his bones. His injured leg burned, then slowly went numb. His chest tightened as each breath became harder than the last. He lowered his head, not because he was resting, but because he was done. For the first time since he was a puppy, he didn't wait for a command. He didn't listen for footsteps. He didn't hope for a familiar voice calling his name. Hope had frozen solid. If this was how loyalty ended, if this was what service earned, then surviving no longer mattered. The storm howled louder, covering his body inch by inch. Snow dusted his muzzle. His eyelids grew heavy, fighting a sleep that felt dangerously final. And just as the world began to fade, a pair of headlights cut through the darkness. They slowed, then stopped. The German shepherd didn't lift his head. He had already been betrayed too many times to believe anyone was coming for him now. Before the storm, before the chain, before the silence, there was a beginning. His name was Rex. Rex was born in a small litter on the outskirts of a working dog breeding facility. From the first weeks, trainers noticed something different about him. He wasn't the loudest puppy. He didn't push others aside for food. Instead, he watched. He studied. His eyes followed every movement, every voice, every change in mood. When a human entered the room, Rex didn't jump wildly like the others. He walked over and sat down, calm and focused, waiting. That calm focus made the trainers take notice. At just 1 year old, Rex was selected for K-9 training. Training was not kind. Long days, sharp commands, loud gunshots echoing without warning, dark rooms filled with unfamiliar smells, obstacles that tested strength and courage. Many dogs failed. Rex never did. He learned quickly, not out of fear, but out of trust. When a handler spoke, Rex listened. When a command was given, he followed it with complete commitment. That's when Officer Daniel Carter met him. Carter had worked with K-9 as before, but the moment Rex locked eyes with him, something felt different. Rex walked straight to Carter, sat down, and placed one paw gently on his boot. From that moment on, Rex chose him. They trained together every day. Carter talked to Rex constantly, about work, about life, about things Rex couldn't understand but somehow felt. Rex slept outside Carter's locker. He waited by the door when Carter left the room. They became inseparable. Soon, they were officially partnered. Rex rode in the front seat of a patrol car, ears alert, eyes scanning everything. He knew the sound of the engine, the feel of Carter's hand on his head, the meaning of every tone in his voice. On duty, Rex was fearless. He tracked missing children through forests thick with darkness. He chased suspects through abandoned buildings where shadows moved like threats. When danger appeared, Rex didn't hesitate. He moved forward, always forward. More than once, he placed himself between Carter and harm. The department praised Rex. Medals were given. His name was spoken with respect. But Rex didn't care about praise. All he cared about was Carter. Years passed. Rex grew older. His steps slowed just a little. His jumps weren't as high. His body carried scars from a job that never allowed weakness. Then came the night that changed everything. The call was urgent. An armed suspect had barricaded himself inside a rundown warehouse. Backup was delayed. Time was critical. Carter and Rex went in anyway. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Shadows moved. Every sound felt dangerous. Rex stayed close, muscles tight, ready. Then it happened. A loud crack tore through the building. Pain exploded through Rex's body. His legs shattered beneath him, sending him crashing to the ground. Blood soaked into the concrete floor. The world spun. But Rex didn't retreat. Dragging himself forward, he placed his body between Carter and the threat, growling through the pain, refusing to back down. The suspect was arrested. Carter survived. Rex collapsed. Emergency surgery saved his life, but the damage was severe. Metal plates were placed in his leg. Recovery was long and painful. Carter visited at first, then less often, then not at all. The department praised Rex publicly, calling him a hero. But behind closed doors, paperwork moved quietly. Decisions were made quickly. Rex could no longer serve the way he once did. He was labeled medically unfit for active duty. New dogs were trained. Younger dogs. Faster dogs. Rex waited by the kennel door every day, listening for Carter's footsteps. They never came. One morning, a stranger clipped a leash to his collar. Rex wagged his tail, hopeful. He didn't know this was the beginning of the end. Rex believed the leash meant he was going home. That's what it always meant before. Whenever a leash was clipped onto his collar, it meant a mission, a ride, a familiar place. Rex limped forward, doing his best to keep pace, ignoring the pain in his injured leg. The man holding the leash wasn't Officer Carter. He didn't speak. He didn't kneel down. He didn't look at Rex. They walked past the kennels, past the training yard, past the patrol cars Rex used to ride in. Rex slowed, turning his head, searching for the one face he trusted more than any other. But Carter never appeared. Rex was loaded into the back of a vehicle instead of the front. The door shut behind him with a hard metallic sound that echoed in his chest. The drive was long. The road noises changed. City sounds faded. Pavement turned rough. The smell of people disappeared, replaced by cold air and open land. Rex stayed quiet the entire time. He believed this was temporary. The vehicle finally stopped. The door opened to nothing but darkness and bitter cold. Wind rushed in, sharp and unforgiving. The man stepped out first, pulling Rex after him. They were in the middle of nowhere. No houses, no streetlights, no familiar scents. Just open land and a single rusted metal post driven into the frozen ground. Rex hesitated. The man wrapped a thick chain around Rex's neck and locked it to the post. The metal was already ice cold against his skin. Rex wagged his tail once, uncertain. Then the man stood up, turned around, and walked away. The engine started. Headlights flashed. The vehicle drove off. Rex froze, not from the cold, but from confusion. He stood there, staring into the darkness, waiting for the man to come back. Minutes passed, then longer. The cold seeped into his paws. His injured leg began to ache badly. He shifted his weight, testing the chain, pulling gently at first. It didn't move. Rex barked once. Then again. His voice echoed into nothing. Hours passed. Snow began to fall softly at first, then heavier. The ground hardened beneath him. His breath turned into small white clouds that vanished instantly in the wind. Rex pulled harder now, panic creeping in. The chain scraped into his neck, but he didn't care. He needed to get free. He needed to follow. But his injured leg failed him. Pain shot through his body as he collapsed into the snow. He struggled to stand again, slipping, falling, his body refusing to cooperate. Finally, exhausted and trembling, Rex sat down. The storm arrived after sunset. Wind howled like something alive, tearing across the field. Snow whipped sideways, slamming into his face. Ice formed along his fur, weighing him down. Rex stopped barking. He stopped pulling. He stopped trying. Memories flooded his mind. Carter's voice, the patrol car, the praise, the trust, and then the silence. Rex lowered his head. His body shook uncontrollably. His injured leg burned, then slowly went numb. His breathing grew shallow, each breath harder than the last. The cold wasn't the worst part. The betrayal was. He had followed every command, protected every human, given everything without question. And this was how it ended. Rex curled his tail around his paws, trying to conserve what little warmth he had left. Snow covered his back. Ice clung to his whiskers. His eyes grew heavy. He didn't fight it. If this was the end, he would meet it quietly. By the second night, Rex no longer reacted to the storm. He sat perfectly still, waiting for nothing. The storm was at its worst when Emily saw him. She had just finished a double shift at the hospital. Her body ached. Her head throbbed, and all she wanted was to get home before the roads became completely impassable. Snow hammered her windshield, so hard it sounded like gravel. The wind pushed her car sideways, forcing her to grip the steering wheel with both hands. She almost missed him. Almost. Something dark at the edge of the field caught her eye, not moving, not reacting to the storm. Her instincts tightened in her chest. Emily slowed down, squinting through the snow. As her headlights swept across the field, they reflected off something metallic. A chain. Her heart dropped. She pulled over without thinking, ignoring the fear crawling up her spine. The cold hit her the moment she opened the door, stealing the breath from her lungs. Snow soaked her shoes instantly as she stepped off the road. Then she saw him clearly. The German shepherd sat perfectly still, snow piled on his back, his body stiff and trembling. Ice coated his fur. The chain around his neck was pulled tight, the skin beneath it raw and red. For one terrifying second, Emily thought he was already dead. Then his eyes moved. "Oh my God!" she whispered, her voice breaking. She rushed toward him, slipping on the ice, dropping to her knees in the snow right in front of him. Up close, he looked worse. His breathing was shallow. His body felt unnaturally cold beneath her shaking hands. "You're alive," she said softly. "You're still alive." Rex didn't respond. He didn't lift his head. He didn't flinch. He didn't even look at her. Emily fumbled with the chain, her fingers already numb from the cold. The lock was frozen solid. She pulled, twisted, begged it to move. Nothing. Her hands burned, then went numb. Panic rose in her chest. She shrugged off her coat and wrapped it around Rex's body, pressing herself against him, trying to block the wind. "Please," she whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Please don't give up now." Still nothing. The storm screamed around them, stealing warmth faster than she could give it. Emily felt helpless. She had seen people fight for their lives in hospital beds. But this felt worse, because Rex had already stopped fighting. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his frozen fur. "I don't know what you've been through," she said quietly, "but I know you didn't deserve this." Something changed. Rex's ears twitched, barely noticeable, but real. Emily swallowed hard, hope rushing in despite herself. "You were a good dog," she continued. "I can see it. Someone should have protected you." Rex slowly lifted his head, just a few inches, but it was the first movement he had made in days. Emily gasped. "That's it," she said softly. "I'm here now." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called for help, her voice cracking as she explained where she was and what she'd found. Every minute felt like an hour. She kept talking to Rex the entire time, about her day, about the hospital, about nothing at all, anything to keep him awake. Red and blue lights finally cut through the storm. Rescue workers rushed in, breaking the lock, lifting Rex carefully onto a stretcher. His body barely responded, but his eyes stayed on Emily. At the emergency vet, doctors shook their heads. Severe hypothermia. Infection. Old injuries reopened. He might not make it through the night, one of them said gently. Emily stayed anyway. She sat on the cold clinic floor, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, watching Rex breathe. Slow, shallow, fragile. She reached through the kennel bars and whispered, "You don't have to trust me. Just stay." Rex's eyes never left her. Rex didn't recover quickly. The vet said it was a miracle he had survived the storm. Severe hypothermia, deep wounds from the chain, old injuries reopened. All of it should have ended him long before Emily arrived. But he had survived. That night. As snow continued to fall outside, he lay on a soft blanket in the vet clinic, eyes half closed, barely moving. Emily sat beside him, legs folded on the cold floor. She didn't say much at first. She just watched him breathe. Each rise and fall of his chest was a tiny victory. She reached out, touching his fur gently, feeling the sharp contrast of frozen patches and warm skin. "You made it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're still here. You're not alone anymore." Rex flinched at first, a reflex born of betrayal. His head lowered slightly, but he didn't pull away. For the first time in days, he allowed human contact without fear. The days that followed were slow. Rex refused food at first. He didn't respond to commands. The sound of footsteps made him cower. At night, he would tremble even under thick blankets. The trauma ran deep. Years of service, years of trust, all thrown away by the very people he had given everything to. Emily didn't rush him. She knew he had survived storms both literal and metaphorical, and that healing a body was only the first step. Healing his heart would take longer. She slept beside his kennel, wrapped in blankets, whispering stories. Stories of small things. Her day at the hospital, a funny moment with a patient, her cat back home. She never scolded, never forced him. She only offered patience and love. Slowly, tiny changes began to appear. First, he stopped flinching when she approached. Then, he began to accept food without hesitation. Finally, he lifted his head when she spoke to him, ears twitching at her voice. Every movement, no matter how small, was a victory. Weeks passed, then months. Rex began to follow Emily around the clinic, tail low, but wagging slightly. He no longer hid when new people entered. He started to trust again, step by careful step. One morning, he walked up to her and pressed his head against her knee. She froze, stunned by the gesture. Her hands shook as she stroked his fur. It wasn't just a dog seeking warmth. It was a dog offering trust, offering himself. Finally, later, after he was cleared by the vets, Emily brought him home. The house was warm, safe, filled with blankets, food bowls, and soft beds. For Rex, every object was a promise. No more betrayal, no more chains, no more abandonment. Emily introduced him slowly to her life. Walks in the park, quiet evenings by the fireplace, visits from people who only wanted to help. Each experience was a test, but Rex passed. He learned that humans could be gentle, patient, and kind. He learned that loyalty, when met with love, could be rewarding instead of cruel. Storms still scared him. Thunder made him flinch. Sudden movements startled him. But every time, Emily was there. She never left his side, never forced him to act before he was ready. And each time his trust grew. Months later, Rex was walking proudly. Tail high, head up, eyes alert but calm. He no longer limped from fear or old injuries. His body healed as much as it could, but his spirit had healed even more. He never returned to K-9 duty. The scars and the memories remained too deep. But he didn't need a badge or a mission anymore. Now he had something better. A home. A human who never betrayed him. A life where storms no longer signaled danger, but simply a reminder of how far he had come. On quiet evenings, Rex sits by the window when snow falls, ears alert but body relaxed. He watches the world with cautious curiosity, no longer afraid to trust. And when Emily steps into the room, he greets her with gentle eyes and a wagging tail, the sign that he finally belongs. Once, he had sat frozen in a storm, deciding he no longer wanted to survive. Now, he runs across open fields, plays in the sunlight, rests on warm floors, and sleeps peacefully at night. He learned that some humans betray, but some humans never walk away. Rex chose to trust again, and in doing so, he found something worth living for. A life filled with love. A life that valued loyalty. A life that finally made him whole.